Where are you now? I'm waiting here. Sing for me sweet lullabies. Bright nights, everlasting darksome days. Bright nights, wearing the stain you made on me. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait for the bright nights to lead my way through the maze.
There we are. Welcome, everybody, to our next live stream. This is the Unacceptables. I am Jay, or rather, I'm Scott, and this is Jay. And welcome, Jay. How are you doing over there?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Well, you know,
I just wanted to
I have an
start off
identity crisis.
real quick
Yeah,
with.
yes.
I just want to start off with one solemn thing at the start here. I just want to send out well wishes to the family of Jamal Hamill, who I just happened to catch. I was watching a little bit of the Buffalo Bills game yesterday while I was eating dinner, and he made a tackle right real close to center field or the center yard line, and he got up from it and then immediately collapsed again. And he was the medical staff came out on the field and they administered CPR for 27 minutes before they were able to resuscitate him and get him into the ambulance. He coded again on the way to the hospital, but he made it through the night. He's still in critical condition. Nobody's really sure. There's no real reports or anything, but the game was obviously shut down and delayed. Everybody stuck around at the stadium for waiting for news for about an hour, and then they pulled the plug on it. But it was a scary moment. Second, it would there was only one time that this happened in NFL history. The other time was cardiac arrest, and that was resulted in death. This time, that obviously at this point hasn't been the case, but it's another scary one involving a perfectly healthy person and a bit of a cardiac failure during a sports game. There's been a few of those over the last few years, and certainly it's not to take away from regular people that are going through these things, but when you look at an athlete putting his life out on the line and 30,000 people being there watching it, it's obviously a really serious matter. So I just wanted to send that out. Everybody keep that person in your thoughts as we move forward. So thank you for that, Scott.
And just in regards to that, I did a little bit of looking around on that just prior to us going live here. I guess there was an update. He was revived after 8 minutes on the field. He was revived,
Mhm.
and then he crashed again at the hospital and was revived again. And at this point in time, he's put in a coma and he's on life support. He's been intubated.
Okay.
And that's the only update I could come up with. I haven't seen anything else on it.
Yeah. So that's obviously in
yeah.
preparation for a heart surgery, I would imagine. That's generally when they do that.
It's hard. I mean, that's the only update I got, or I could find. For me personally, I'm not a medical expert, so I couldn't really even hazard a guess. But certainly grim news. Tough to watch. It was an innocent play. He took a shoulder pad to kind of the middle of the chest, kind of the sternum area. He dropped.
Yeah.
It looked sort of like an innocuous play, and he got up, and then he sort of just didn't get back up after he fell down again. So
yeah, toughie. But
hard to watch, definitely.
Yeah. So that being said, we have a lot in store this evening. We're going to go through 3 more sets of Twitter files. We started off with 2, 3, and 4. Last time we're kind of doing these topically. That's why they're in kind of a janky order. We're also skipping 5 this time and going to 6, 7, and 8. And then we'll wrap it up with 1, 5, 9, 10. Any further releases. We don't really get any warnings on these Twitter files. We just wake up in the morning and they're buzzing over it. So that's how it's been.
Everybody's freaking out. Yeah,
freaking out, man. So should I'll roll clip number 1 here, Scott, you think?
Yeah, let's go with clip number 1. So this is our little adventure with one Barry Weiss or Weiss. How do we pronounce that, Jay? Do you know?
It is Weiss.
Weiss. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's.
The Orthodox Jewish naming system escapes me, but in her case, that's how she pronounces it. So I tend to as well.
All right. Fair enough.
Okay.
On Friday, December 16th, independent journalist Matt Taibbi released part 6 of the Twitter files in a series of tweets on Twitter itself. Having been granted access to the Twitter archives, Taibbi began with, "Twitter's contact with the FBI was constant and pervasive, as if it was a subsidiary." Taibbi continued on to say, between January 2020 and November 2022, there were over 150 emails between the FBI and the former Twitter Trust and Safety Chief, Yoel Roth. I personally feel that it is important to note that Yoel Roth left academia and joined Twitter in this position. He once stated in an interview with Barry Weiss that he was leaving academia and moving to Twitter because he felt that there was more that could be done and that he would have a greater capacity to do so with social media than in his role in academia. Now, some of those 150 emails were included in the series of tweets by Matt Taibbi. The FBI would simply name the account they had an issue with, and Twitter would then act directly as they had been requested. And don't think that these were widely influenced.
Okay, I just got that up, Scott. I'm monitoring the live feed here, and that one wasn't playing. I'm not sure exactly why, but some technical difficulty there.
Interesting. I had it on my end. Let me.
Okay.
Which one is that in our order here? I guess that'd be the last one here. Let's just try that and see if it's playing in the live from your end. Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
So we're
On Friday, December 16th, independent journalist Matt Taibbi released part 6 of the Twitter files in a series of tweets on Twitter itself. Having been granted access to the Twitter archives, Taibbi began with, "Twitter's contact with the FBI was constant and pervasive, as if it was a subsidiary." Taibbi continued on to say, between January 2020 and November 2022, There were over 150 emails between the FBI and the former Twitter trust and safety chief, Yul Roth. I personally feel that it is important to note that Yul Roth left academia and joined Twitter in this position. He once stated in an interview with Barry Weiss that he was leaving academia and moving to Twitter because he felt that there was more that could be done and that he would have a greater capacity to do so with social media than in his role in academia. Now, some of those 150 emails were included in the series of tweets by Matt Taibbi. The FBI would simply name the account they had an issue with, and Twitter would then act directly as they had been requested. And don't think that these were widely influenced accounts only. These ranged in accounts from the mega popular to people with very few followers who were simply posting jokes or trolling. After combing through these archived Twitter histories, one of Matt Taibbi's summarizations was that the Twitter/FBI relationship was like a master canine situation. Another point that Taibbi made was that the increased communication between Twitter and the FBI began after the 2016 election of Donald Trump. The ubiquity of the 2016 Russian interference story is stated pretext for building out the censorship machine can't be overstated. It's analogous to how 9/11 inspired the expansion of the security state. Not just the FBI, though. Tweet 37 shows reports also came from different agencies. Here, an employee recommends bouncing content based on evidence from the Department of Homeland Security, etc. Tweet 44 concludes the takeaway. What most people think of as the deep state is really a tangled collaboration of state agencies, private contractors, and sometimes state-funded NGOs. The lines become so blurred as to be meaningless. Safe to say a lot of snakes in the grass.
All right, so that's a little synopsis of Matt Taibbi's work on the Twitter files. So, I mean, what really jumps out at you, Scott, about Matt Taibbi's portion of this?
Well, I mean, it's a good time to be alive, don't you think? I mean, it,
It's an interesting time to be alive.
it's an incredible time to be alive. I mean, a couple of years ago, if I had told this story to anybody that I knew, they would have said, "You're out of your fucking mind, buddy. There's no way that's possible. That's never going to happen." And now it's coming out. And you know, the funny thing is there's still a cover up by the FBI in the States as you know, as we speak. You know, they are putting out propaganda stating that this is a conspiracy theory. Is their go-to, of course, since who knows, 1950s CIA, when they tried to state that something somebody said or something was I think it was to do with UFOs or something, I can't remember, was a conspiracy theory. And that's kind of how that all got started. It was just to let the general public think that the people reporting the story were crazy in order to avoid hearing the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
and this is very much the same thing. They're trying to cover it up again by calling it a conspiracy theory, and you know, it's not. And
No.
I still talk
Especially
to
when there's a
people
receipt.
random. Yep. I mean, what more do you want? It's honestly, this is the most obvious form of a confirmation bias I've ever seen, and it's like somebody's been fooled by the government and by these different agencies into thinking that they have, you know, their own good, you know, in mind when they do things, and they certainly never did. And they've believed that for so long that when any proof comes out, it's you know, it's immediately, well, there's no way that's possible, even
Yeah.
with proof.
Yeah.
You know, I don't believe you.
Well, and I mean, in all things too, like, I mean, there's a certain amount that you can say, you know, they're conducting psyops. They have professionals. They know human psychology. They're doing the same thing that casinos are doing, etc. And yeah, that's really awful. But that's really not at this point. I don't consider that to be a scapegoat anymore for not knowing your business, which is democracy. It's your business. You have a vested interest and a
Mhm.
responsibility that goes along with living in a democratic nation. Like we have known about the Gulf of Tonkin incident since 2003, when it was finally announced. Yes, we started Vietnam. We false flagged.
Mhm.
We sunk our own ship
Mhm.
to start
Yep.
Vietnam.
Yeah, we
And
sure
you
did.
can walk up to people and say, "How did Vietnam start?" And that's gone out of the consciousness because people didn't just, whether they weren't upset about it enough or they dismissed it from their mind, and it's like,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I don't give anybody a pass anymore. Like if somebody says, "Oh, they're fooling us and they're fooling us and they're fooling us," there's only so much. I don't really have an empathy statement for that anymore. You know, I just go, yeah, that's what they're doing, and it's quite clear that you just complaining about it once in a while is not going to do shit to fix it. But I mean, this is where we're at, right? And it's like, you know, not to deviate too much from the subject, but if we look at what the Republicans are doing right now, they're basically filibustering um, their own Speaker of the House to make sure that they get somebody in there who's going to be a junkyard dog when they have hearings, like the hearing Twitter file. They want somebody in there who's going to not let these people get away with not answering questions and so on and so forth, because that's part of the problem, is that we let them off with dancing around questions all the time. And it's always been there. Politicians have always done that, but it wasn't accepted across the board and as often prior to now. Now it's like they never ever have to answer anything straight up and honest, and nobody's holding anybody accountable for that. And I mean, until now, I mean, we start to see that in the United States. We start to see a lot of pushback, and but people need to vote that way too. Like, if you don't like the current government and you don't intend to go and vote any way but that way in the next election, then sorry, but you're part of the problem.
If you want to complain, you people out there, if you want to fucking complain about something and you haven't voted, you're a hypocrite. Remember that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. You legally get the day off work if you want it. Like, there's no excuse. There really isn't. But so that's how I see that part, is like, yeah, further to your point, and that's just doubling down on your point. Like, absolutely, there's stupid amounts of confirmation bias. But it's like that age old question: do you blame the dumbass, or do you blame the dumbass who employs the dumbass and cuts him a check every 2 weeks, right? Like,
Well, I mean, you blame them all.
yeah,
It's the same.
yeah,
Okay, well, do you blame the guy that gave the order or the guy that executed the order?
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, I mean, my rule in leadership when I was, department head and um, executive chef at a few casinos and etc. My rule, and I was pretty ruthless about it, was, if you're in management, if you're a leader, everything's your fault. Every single thing is your fault. There's no such thing as something that isn't your fault. So therefore, yes, absolutely, it's the FBI's fault. It's also the fault of Congress for allowing them to do it. It's the fault of
Yeah.
the Senate for allowing them to do it. It's
Yeah.
the fault
Yeah,
of the
it is.
people who
It
don't
is.
elect politicians who are going to get in there and change something, like Kerry Lake in Arizona. There's no that should have even been close enough for them to be able to cheat in Arizona, except that just too many people sat on their hands and didn't want to go down. And that's what pessimism does. You cannot get pessimistic about this. Get angry, but do not get pessimistic, because that will enslave you faster than anything on this planet. Pessimism will steal your soul. So, be angry. That's good. Don't throw your arms up, because the ship will just keep sinking. You know.
Well, I think it's safe to say the ship has sunk by now at this point in this fucking
Yeah.
country. It's
Yeah.
we don't even count as a country. We're like a joke of a country. People around the world are out there going, well, we have the US, and then we have, Brazil, maybe we have Indonesia, and what's this over here? What the fuck? This is a meme. This is not a country. That's how I feel lately. It's our country and our government is a joke. And like you said, and I'll allude to what you were referring to when there's no answers being given in the House. If you watch anything going on in the House of Commons or anything else like that, you'll see very clearly that they ask questions. You know, the conservatives ask questions and the liberals don't answer the questions ever. There's never a single actual answer given. It's always almost a rehearsed answer. They don't care to answer the question because they don't give a shit what you think. They don't give a shit what the opposition party thinks either because they think it's all just a formality. And that's not how
And
it's
they have
supposed
a
to be.
bunch of stupid liberal voters who accept that from the people that they pay their taxes to as well. And that's sick. I mean, I want there to be peace and I want us to get along and get rid of the left and right thing. But if you're an NDP voter and you're okay with the NDP forming a liberal coalition halfway through an election cycle that you had absolutely no say over, that there was literally nobody asked you at all and they just did that to you, like how insulting. I would be so offended if I was you. I don't know how you're not offended by that. And the same with the liberals. How can you not be offended by 4 trips to the ethics commission? Like 4. Like how many does it take before you go, yeah, that's a bad government we elected? Like where is the
Well,
threshold
I
for
mean,
what is a bad fucking government?
we're talking about one of the most incredibly creative PR campaigns of all time for a politician. I'm going to tell you why. Okay. What's a better way to manage your PR mishaps than to have another mishap? So you fuck something up like the SNC Lavalin scandal. And then you go and do something else and the Jody Wilson-Raybould thing and the other thing. And then so every time there's a scandal, have another scandal. And then you forget about the last thing. And that's how short people's attention span is now. If you have a scandal and then a month later or 6 months later you have another scandal, they'll forget about the other scandal. They'll forget about the trip to whatever island it was for the whatever. Like it's ridiculous at this point that people think that they still have a good quality leader in their liberal leader, because there's no fucking way you can't understand the guy's corrupt as hell. And I just don't get it. I don't. But we're on a different subject here.
So-
Let's talk about some Twitter.
I mean, but like I say, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, bringing that back around, I mean, what we can see though is that by and large, and maybe we don't quite have the numbers here. I think they have the numbers in the States now. I think they have the numbers in Australia. I'm sure they have the numbers in Britain now and Germany that are now saying no, this isn't enough. There has to be more transparency. We want more information. And I don't think that that's optional at this point. I think that that's been kind of. I think people have stated it quite clear that that's not an optional matter. It's going to be about transparency. So we're pushing back that way, and there's a little bit. There's a ways to go on it yet, for sure. But we are headed in the right direction as far as that goes. So, I think we're starting to see the transparency change when we look at the fact that we've now seen 2 major events where social media was used, independent journalism was used as the soapbox. When Brian Peckford brought forward his lawsuit, he announced that on the Jordan Peterson podcast. He didn't send that to CBC. He didn't send it to BBC. He didn't write it into a newspaper. He got on the Jordan B. Peterson podcast and did it there. And he said to Jordan Peterson, who was very uncomfortable about it, and said, "I'm not sure this is the correct venue." And Mr. Peckford said to him, "I don't trust any one of them to actually publish it and to do it even remotely accurately." And now we come forward and Elon Musk goes the same route. He says, "I'm not giving this to the New York Times. I'm going to find 5 really good independent journalists and give the people what they actually want." And then it's, we're going to see more kind of down that rabbit hole in a clip coming up from the next Twitter Files. But I do think that we are starting to see a bit of a shift towards a more transparent system of doing things. We see politicians even like Pierre Poilievre and Carrie Lake and a few others who are now, and especially Christine Anderson, who are doing their work via social media because they're not going to trust the big cameras anymore, and rightfully so.
Well, because they don't trust the spin that's going to be put on the story, and that's the biggest thing here. They don't trust the spin or the take or the clip or how it's going to be taken out of context,
Or
and
even if it will be published at all.
and also even if they're going to get any views, if they're going to get it put on the air. And I think that's the problem here. People still watch stuff that is literally edited so that it is only somebody's opinion at that point rather than what actually happened, which is absurd. So our next piece here,
Just quickly before we do that, Scott, just while
Yeah.
we're on the topic of independent journalism,
Sure.
we just for our audience, we just wanted to let you know that we're gonna start launching our Truthly program, which we'll get into in more detail later on. But it's a good way to introduce it. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that we have a ticker scrolling across there. And what we
the
wanna-
ticker.
Yeah, what we actually want to have is we would like for anybody who watches and is interested and wants to become a member of the guild. We want you to send in whatever you think is the most important pressing matter of the day or the week or the month or what have you. We want you to basically come up with 200 words, so almost like a Twitter post, 200 words that we can scroll across the bottom of the screen there, and then give you credit for it as the writer, and also put 5 guild coins in your guild wallet. We want to just introduce a little even more independent journalism, because opinion pieces are important. People's opinions are important. You don't only need facts, you need opinions too.
For sure. And probably some people don't know what guild coins are, so we should make a point of mentioning what those are as well. So
Actually, I think why don't we take and have the Sunday episode this week, because we're gonna have an episode every Sunday. Why don't we take the Sunday episode and let's go into a deep dive of everything guild related.
All
And
right.
we can go through
Yep.
the wallets and the Rabbit Hole Radio app that this very episode is going to be on in 12 hours.
Sure.
And so on and so forth. All this stuff is really, and it would be good to fill everybody in, but it'd be nice if we could really dive deep into it and really drill down on that. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, no, actually, that's a way better idea. It's something that requires a little bit more than 20 minutes of attention. So
Exactly.
let's do that.
And in the spirit of transparency, everybody, we just made a decision about our broadcast on the air, live, on the cuff. That's transparency. There's no hidden agendas here.
And we're always working hard to improve how we do things around here. We have a little bit different look. If you guys were witness to our previous disastrous streams, this one's looking a little bit more professional and it's going a little bit smoother. Although apparently I've got an identity crisis. I identified myself as Jay earlier. But moving along from that, welcome viewers, and feel free to drop us something in the chat here. I think somebody here is chatting. Oh,
We have a chatty.
We have some chatters.
We have a chatty. Oh, I didn't log in, so I can't see the chat box. You're solo on that one, unless I can check the YouTube.
All right. Well, you know what? You in the chat, Miss Heather, thank you, and we'll get back to you in a second here. But I just want to roll the next clip here and get back on track, and then we'll deal with the chat maybe.
Yes.
Towards the next part here.
Absolutely.
So let's get this clip rolling. So let's introduce the clip first here, Jay. You go ahead.
Okay, so this is going to be this is part 7 of the Twitter file, and it's we're kind of picking up right where we left off. 6 and 7 are very similar, so we'll just get straight into that because there's not too much to bridge there.
Part 7 of the Twitter Files was released on December 18th, 2022 by Michael Schellenberger. His first tweet read, the FBI and the Hunter Biden laptop. How the FBI and intelligence community described factual information about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings, both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14th, 2021. Meanwhile, over at the Hoover Building, the FBI paid a whopping $3.14 million to Twitter in exchange for their efforts in keeping America safe from misinformation. And that's where the violation to the First Amendment comes in. Yes, a private company is not subject to censorship laws. However, if a government agency is using a private corporation in order to censor, then that is a violation of the First Amendment. And that is what the GOP will attempt to prove in Congress and start to roll back the clock on some of these things that have been gradually getting worse since 9/11. For those who don't know, essentially, Hunter Biden took his laptop into a computer repair shop in Washington, asked them to fix it for him, and he never showed up to claim it. Now, the person who had done the work on the laptop did find some disturbing things in the hard drive of the laptop, and he was under contract to be able to see those things, and he turned that laptop into the FBI, but not before making a copy of the contents of the hard drive. The technician was concerned that the FBI was not going to do anything with it or suppress it, and so he gave that copy to former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who 8 months later handed it in to the New York Post as the election neared, 2 weeks out of the 2020 election. Apparently, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Twitter, Facebook, and probably any large number of other organizations like that had all conducted exercises in the unlikely event that Russian interference became a problem with the 2020 election. And so all of these organizations knew exactly what to do when the FBI contacted them and said, the information the New York Post has released is not factual, it's misinformation, and it's lies. And so all of those organizations then went into the exact mode that they were trained to go into and suppressed that story completely, removing it from the public awareness and potentially changing the results of the 2020 election. Now, this may not strictly be speaking illegal, but I think anyone can get behind the fact that ethically people have the right to know everything going into an election, all the available information, and not just what some government agency decides the people should know going into that election. Former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey announced that Twitter has nothing to hide, and that Elon should have released the entirety of the documents from Go. It's an interesting perspective. Certainly that would be the easiest way for it to go away as fast as possible, and I would assume that is why Elon is not releasing it at once, so that people simply can't brush it off under the rug and move on to the next crisis, but are actually forced to think about this, like adults.
Like adults. Hey?
Okay. Like adults. Yeah, like adults. Fucking be adults.
Like adults. Be adults. Stop
It
being
seems like a
fucking
blatantly
children.
obvious rule for life.
And be adults. Yeah, no kidding. Jesus. But you have to say that nowadays. You have to say to people, can you please pull up your pants a little bit? Can you please, act like an adult?
Yeah, knock it off with your victimology statement. I get it. Life
Yeah.
sucks. I've been knowing this. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So here we see number one is it's kind of interesting, like you were just saying about the attention span thing and how they just bounce from one to the other. Now, I know I'm a bit of an Elon pusher, and I made a point about in Elon's favor last time too, but I'm going to do another one, and that is that's exactly why he's slow releasing it. It's exactly why it's a slow dripping tap, because he's saying, no, you're not going to just bury this under the next miniature made up hypothetical crisis, and we're actually going to deal with this, and everybody's going to have a say as it goes on. Nobody's voice is going to be kept out of it, and let's actually find out about this. Let's actually get right down into it. And it's very uncomfortable for the left right now, I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, and it ought to be. Certainly,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a scholar to figure out what's going on here. And I think there's a lot of people in denial. Like we said, confirmation bias. Nobody wants to be thought of as a fool. So I think there's a lot of that going on. But how does it feel? I wonder how people feel knowing that they made the president of their country look like a criminal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it
had a
wasn't
direct
true.
impact on the election. Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I
it, yeah,
mean,
it was one. Yeah. It was,
there isn't that a very serious offense in the U.S.? I mean, I'm asking legitimately, like, what is the actual charge? I don't know. I'm not a legal expert here. Maybe somebody in the chat
it's
can
as
tell
if
us.
lying is completely fine unless you're literally under oath. It's like the rest of the time you can say whatever stupid ass thing you want.
Well, no, let's clarify a little bit. Now, if the government lies to you, it's called being a politician. But if you lie to them, you go to jail.
Yeah, immediately. Do not pass go. Do not
Yeah.
collect $200.
So let's just clarify. It's rules for thee, but not for me, and that's fucking horseshit if you ask me. But
Mhm.
anyways,
100%. So, I mean, what we can, like, what we can really pull out of that whole quagmire. Actually, maybe I'll even say a casserole of nonsense that was all swirling around this incident is the other important part there is that the FBI literally trained all of their favorite media outlets they're saying now in the coming election we're probably going to get Russian interference, and it'll probably be somebody's laptop getting hacked, and it'll be a hack and leak that is false, and that's why we have to do this. So this was primed, and that's because the FBI knew it was on the laptop 9 months before the election, and they knew that Rudy Giuliani had the laptop or had the information on the hard drive, and they knew that he was at some point going to give it to a paper. And so what did they do? They basically just prepared everybody for when Rudy Giuliani did that, because they were watching him. They probably had his phone tapped, everything. And for an all intensive purposes, a great American, Rudy Giuliani, like that is a great American. And that the level of disrespect that shows, for one thing, that they had to watch him as if he's some kind of terrorist because of something that they wanted to keep hidden. I'm certain that there's a lot of laws broken there that nobody else could break besides a government agency.
Well, I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah,
That's pretty
Like,
obvious.
it's horrific. It's horrific, and I'm beside myself with how many people are looking and saying that it's justified. And it's like, there is no justification. There's no such thing as a candidate so bad that you will give up your democracy to have the leader that you want. Hitler was democratically elected. Full stop.
Let that sink in. Let
Yeah.
that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So the thing is, though, are people going to get angry? Are people actually going to get angry? And I don't mean angry, like, disclaimer here. I'm not promoting violence. I'm not saying to threaten people. I'm not doing anything of the sort. What I mean by angry is, are you going to get upset and angry enough with your government and what's going on in the world right now, not just your government, but all over the world, to actually do something and stand up, speak out? And it starts with something small, but it could turn into something big. But it takes a lot of people to get this done. And so find the information. And luckily for our numerous viewers here, luckily for you guys, we'll break the information down for you, and you can follow along, and you can sort of be given a Reader's Digest version. But don't stop there. Don't stop with just learning. Do something about it. Write your MPs, pepper them with phone calls, call for a non-confidence vote.
Every day when you
The-
get up, type in Google political petition and just sign a petition. Keep the wheels of democracy rolling in little ways like that. Because if you do one little thing every day, and there are 300 million of you, which there are in the case of the United States, in Canada there are 40 million of us. If you can do one little thing like just sign a petition, you know, send an email to your local MP. Make sure that they know how many people are not just questioning something, but how many people are dead set against something. It's going to have on your upcoming vote. Because vote, like if you convince people that they're going to lose your vote, then that's when you can actually change things. Like there are plenty of politicians out there who will not toe the line and go along exactly with party lines, and we've seen that in the past. We saw that during the convoy. One Liberal cabinet minister left. Right, these things happen, but you have to let them know that their political career will be better if they are standing against what is currently going on that you don't like. And they may not even know how big of an issue some things are, or how many people they have the support of, etc. And then they can go into their cabinet meetings with those numbers. Look at these petitions, people. Look at these numbers, people. We got to push harder here. You know, they have currency. They have political currency. They have like a stack of coins to use. And you have to convince them that this is worth burning 5 political coins on. And then they will. Because it's in self-interest. One thing you can count on people is self-interest. So make it interesting, you know?
And the other thing you can count on is when we have streams, we are going to have technical issues. So if you're following along here and you see the cameras glitching out, it's not anything to do with the quality of the streaming service we're using or YouTube. It's us. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's just us.
It's totally us.
Because this could end up being a disaster, but at least you were a witness to it, and this may be part of your life you regret. But either way, follow us along for the ride here.
It's going to be a killer blooper reel. There's going to be a killer blooper reel. Once a month, we'll do a blooper session. It'll be awesome.
There you go. Yeah, and you guys can be witness to the live version and the blooper reel version, and say I was there when that happened, and it was just as stupid the second time.
Yeah. Anybody who's seen Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience 1 through 49, you know, you have patience. It's fun to watch something organically grow.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hopefully this thing finds its voice at some point. Either way, thanks for those of you that are watching live, and thanks
and
to
those of you who are watching on replay.
On replay. Yeah,
there's quite a few today that were watching on replay.
And to those of you that aren't watching and just listening, both Jay and I were told that we had a face for radio, but we decided to do live streams anyway. So there is that. Enjoy this because you're not being made to suffer like those watching live here in the live stream. So Jay,
and very soon you'll be able to download the episodes, the audio, or the video directly off of the app if you're a listener. And that's going to be a free service for now. Not forever, but we're in beta, so that'll be a service that's free, free to download that, so that if you work a job where you may not have a Wi-Fi nearby or etc., you can just quickly download. It's a very an audio file isn't very big. An hour and a half audio file is, I don't know what, like 250 megabytes maybe, if that.
They're small. They're quick. And the beautiful part about the audio too is that it'll be in good quality because we are broadcasting in quite a good quality of audio. So it'll still be just as good quality or maybe even better than the live stream. Because sometimes what I find with live streams is they can be a bit tinny from the audio and stuff. But when you watch them on replay, it sounds a bit better.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So
in YouTube's case, YouTube does master it for you. There is a mastering. When they say processing, they're actually cleaning it up quite a bit. It's actually
No.
one thing that I will. I mean, YouTube kind of led the field, and they've gotten at it, but a lot of the things that we have in terms of streaming and everything came off of the ingenuity of YouTube. And what we take away from that is, you know, we can innovate this space. People can innovate this space and make the solo journalism great. But the standard system of doing it through a corporation, the problem is they start making money, then they have shareholders, then they get bureaucratic. So decentralized is a better way for us to go. And I think anytime you look for something on the web these days, service, network, in some cases hardware, etc., type in the word decentralized before you look up a network that you want to join and just see, because that's really making a move now. There's a lot of DAOs out there, decentralized autonomous organizations, where just simply by joining, you'll have a vote, and that's certainly the function of the Rabbit Hole Guild as well. But there's lots of it out there, and it's growing. Decentralized, total transparency. You get to decide for yourself, just like Elon's doing with Twitter, with all these polls all the time. Do you want me to step down as the CEO? That's got to be a Guinness record. How many times did a CEO say to all the customers, "Hey, who wants me to just fire my own ass?" I don't think it's probably ever happened.
No, I don't think anybody ever had the balls to
Yeah,
do it.
that's right.
Elon's got balls the size of fucking Mars, that guy.
Yeah.
And so in the chat, by the way, just to address something here, I don't know what this reference is to key lime pie, but I feel like there's a story here. And Jay, do we need to take a sidetrack here and talk about this? Is this something that we should spend some time on, or maybe that's a conversation that...
Well, there are people in our society, and we're trying to have a society, a civilized society, and there are people who have
I
not
already don't like where this is going.
Yeah, there are people who have not ever had key lime pie, who live in the United States of America, and I'm miffed by that. No, I guess that's the thing. In New England, there are no key lime pies. What are you gonna do, right? They probably don't have pierogies either, though. I mean,
yeah, I think we're going to here. Let's just. Yeah, so anyways, moving right along. Jay, you're gonna have to go ahead and carry on with this for a minute. I'll be back, people. This is what happens to me when I spend any time with this man. Tony,
yeah.
This is gonna be a
all right.
disaster. I knew it would be.
Let's get to the last clip, and then
All right, let's roll it.
And then we'll dig in again.
All right, here we.
In part 8 of the Twitter Files, independent journalist Li Feng outlined another insidious problem going on at Twitter, and that was not only censoring political opinions that were less than preferable to the left, but also supporting foreign parties politically as requested by U.S. intelligence agencies. In opening, Li Feng said, Twitter Files Part 8, How Twitter Quietly Aided the Pentagon's Covert Online PSYOP Campaign. Despite promises to shut down covert state-run propaganda networks, Twitter docs shows that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military's influence operations. There were screenshots from U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM. In 2017, a CENTCOM official sent a list of 52 Arab-speaking accounts, which they used to amplify certain messages. The official asked for priority status for some accounts, for whitelisting on some, and for verification on others. And the same day, Twitter did meet those demands. Officials used a tool to grant a special whitelist tag that essentially provides verification status to the accounts without the blue check. This essentially made these accounts exempt from spam and abuse flags, and also gave them better access to the algorithm. These accounts were primarily used to propagate information about Iran and the Saudi war in Yemen, while making it appear that these accounts were unconnected to the US government. One Twitter official who spoke to me said he feels deceived by the covert shift. Still, many emails from throughout 2020 show that high-level Twitter executives were well aware of the Department of Defense's vast network of fake accounts and covert propaganda, and did not suspend the accounts, which is a direct violation of the company's policies and practices. Fung had access for several days, during which time no Twitter executive chose to give a statement involving this newfound information.
All right, so Li Feng, who's that's probably the youngest and most newest and sort of cutting edge of the team who have been given the access to the Twitter archives. And I don't know, he's kind of an interesting guy. I follow him a bit. He's definitely. By the way, that's one of the ones that's not a Republican voter, Li Feng, at all. Barry Weiss is generally not Republican either. So these journalists were not picked because they have any sort of a bias. I mean, most people would consider Barry Weiss, some people would consider Barry Weiss a right-wing conservative simply because she's Jewish. But you know, that's because that's the level of
Is that a right-wing conservative? I'm unaware of this. I didn't know that Jewish people could be widely considered as a right-wing conservative. And correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah. Well, I think anybody with a religion, anybody with a traditional value, like I'm fond of saying, whoever believes in something that didn't exist before 1965 is a conservative to a lot of people. A lot of people just think, you know, if you're bringing anything from further back than that, you know, like if you think it's unsafe to walk under a ladder, then you're just crazy. You shouldn't be allowed to vote, basically, in their opinion. And unfortunately, we're talking about a big chunk of the voting, enough of the voting block that crazy things happen in elections. Yeah.
But none of our beautiful viewers are that type of person that would think that, you know, possibly walking under a ladder might be stupid. Because you're all very smart out there, I can tell, but just by looking at you.
Yeah.
Especially you, right? I mean, you're very smart.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, no, Heather's no sucker. I mean, we've all had over the and you know, in reference to the Twitter files. I mean, like you were saying, when we look at this last one, and we look at the fact that like there's receipts, this is not even debatable information. All of this information is backed up, confirmed, IP address. Like there's no way to deny it, right? The only thing that they can say now, and it's kind of like that moving goalpost, right? It was like, you have to get the vaccine. It prevents the spread of the virus. Well, now that we know it doesn't prevent the spread of the virus, what do you have to say for yourself? It's for the doctors and nurses. It was to keep the hospitals quiet. Okay, yeah, but you said literally a different thing and said that was the reason, which is a lie. So we're not just skipping over that.
and the hilarious part is that when you tell somebody that, well, you know, they told us if we wear masks and get the vaccine, it'll prevent the spread. And those people say, no, they never said that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like you tell somebody that and they say, no, they never said that. And well, they certainly did. But it's funny.
And yes, Elon has lost $200 billion in value. Most of that is related to his assets, would just happen to be a lot of stocks and shares. But I mean, those are Tesla shares. If anybody thinks those aren't going back up again, you know, they are. So like no matter what they are,
they might not go back to what, you know, sort of what they were, but they should go back up again. Yeah.
Well, they'll make new all-time highs. Tesla's at right now they're about like in terms of the tech, as far as the vehicles go, they're about 27 months ahead of any major car manufacturer. So,
Mhm.
they're just one announcement away from just punching those share prices through the roof. And if it was somebody other than Elon Musk, he would take something that's like 85% done, and he would say, no, we have to release that right now. I know there's glitches, but we have to get those prices back up. And Elon says, no, we're not putting out an inferior product. And so that's why the share price is low. But
Mhm.
when you look at the fact that there's still, here's one important thing to look at when it comes to shares and trading, and if anybody is going to get into crypto, very important to know this: how much of the supply is being held, and how much is changing hands. So if you have 72% of the shares in something that never changes hands, and it's only 20% of the shares that are fluctuating up and down, sure, that price is moving, but nope, but everybody's invested long term. And that means that the prices are going to go up again, right? Because the price can't totally plummet because they're not getting below 70% movable asset. So it'll always just bounce back for companies like that. It's the same with Apple. Apple goes down extremely. What's different is when you get a situation like Meta, where they lost, what was it, 36% of their share value in a day. That's relevant to, they had long-term holders that just walked away and said this isn't going to get fixed, right? So there's the difference. So yes, Elon's current value is 200 billion less than it was a year ago, but he's still holding the exact same assets that will appreciate in price again, like everything will in the stock market. It's the inflation that's done that.
Yeah, well, he's certainly no fool. This Elon guy.
He's playing chess with,
Yeah.
like, he's 5 years ahead of everybody on the planet, essentially.
Hmm.
He's thinking about something going on 5 years down the road. The Twitter thing is, he feels it's important at the time, at the moment, and it's not taking away from the way anything else is being run. He's thinking about Mars 2027. Don't even, it's not
Well, yeah, but he's playing chess. So what is his?
even.
Maybe he's got another ulterior motive for Twitter. I don't know. But it's been great, man. Is it spicy on there? It's a good time to be alive. I tell you, if you're on Twitter at all, and you see this stuff happening, I mean, the left is, their heads are exploding right now. It's insane. There's a lot of people
Yeah.
very upset by this, very upset by finding out that their government has been fucking them in the ass for a long time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're probably
And,
recalling some things that happened in their lifetimes and going, "Was that real or not?" It's
and the
it's
people who are in denial are going psychotic. I watched the clip of the Democratic reporters chasing one of the Republican congressmen around Congress today. And like, I don't think I've ever seen something that close to an all-out attack on a politician by the news media. Like they had,
Hmm.
first of all, they were protesting outside of his office, and then chasing him around this building and pushing and shoving, and like, it was really weird to see. It was like these people are, like, the first chance they get to jump on somebody from the right, and it was like way overcooked compared to some of the things that we have to tolerate from the politicians they elect, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what we have here is, it was collusionary. Not only was the government using it to censor their own citizens, but like I say, they were also using it to spread their own propaganda, using something that's supposed to have, it's got this nice little umbrella as a corporation, these social media companies. And one of the reasons that they have that umbrella is because they're supposed to be providing something that's fair and equitable. It's not supposed to be, I do what I want. They have certain shelters, and it comes from the fact that, no, you don't do what you want. You agreed to have oversight. You agreed that
mhm.
you were going to have a different set of rules. So you better at least stick to those.
And the thing is how can you, as a company that's supposed to be presenting media, how can you Twitter people out there, how can you pretend to be any sort of media, any source of actual information if you're manipulating it to sway political or medical or any other sort of information.
Yeah.
I think Elon saved Twitter's life. Honestly, I think Elon saved Twitter's life. I don't think they would have been going much further. At least not on two sides of the aisle. Certainly. Not again. I'm not promoting divisiveness in politics or in life in general.
Yeah.
When there's a line and you see it, you can at least talk about it, and that's what I'm doing here. Is just the people on the left that were supporting this Democratic propaganda seem to have flipped their lid at this point.
Yeah, they don't have any rules. They don't have any rules anymore. There's no limitation on what the left is allowed to do. And we saw that with Sam Harris as well. Very outspoken leader of the atheist movement. And what did he say in an interview? He said, "I don't care what the New York Times did and if it was wrong. I don't care. Joe Biden could have had dead children in his basement, and I still would have preferred that he was elected over Donald Trump." Now, that kind of mentality, that is sick. Like, that is disgusting. Like, when you're thinking that way, when you think that absolutely no law should be spared in the process of keeping somebody out of the White House, you're not thinking democratically. You're thinking that's basically a coup. You're just doing a passive aggressive coup.
I mean, let's be real here. That's not just about you're not thinking democratically. You're not thinking with a sound mind. You're out of your mind.
Yeah.
To think that that's anywhere near acceptable in any case. There's all kinds of video evidence and audio evidence out there. You and I have both seen it, Jay, of now President Joe Biden speaking with somebody, I forget, I think it was an interview or something like that, chuckling about the fact that he had $2 billion in funding sort of on hold until they stopped prosecuting his son, I believe, for drunk driving. And he chuckled and said, I told him I'm not going to give you this $2 billion. I said, you can't do that because, Obama said you'd do it. He says, oh, I can. You want to watch me? And he says, lo and behold, an hour later, the guy was fired. And he joked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they still elected the guy. And the evidence is out there. And I just, it's baffling to me.
Yeah. And I mean, what is on, which we haven't gotten into yet, but what is specifically on the laptop, I mean, one of the things is that we didn't even need the laptop to find out about was that Hunter Biden was on an ownership committee of a giant Ukrainian oil and gas company. And he doesn't speak Ukrainian.
No, he sure doesn't. And
it's all you need to know.
I'm not sure what he knows about oil and gas either, but I don't think it's a whole hell of a lot. I think what he knows a lot about is
having a father that's the vice president,
molesting children and smoking crack cocaine. I think he knows a lot about that. Hunter Biden knows a lot about molesting children and crack cocaine, but I think that's about all he knows about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and how to make the most out of your father's fame, notoriety.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. How to take advantage of political connections 101 with Hunter Biden and the crack troll.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's really bad. We got 4 more videos four more Twitter parts to go in this series, and I guess we'll be throwing some things in there if Congress ever gets rolling. I'm kind of, for me, I'm glad the Republicans are doing what they're doing. I'm glad that they're blocking the inferior choice for Speaker of the House. I'm glad that they're seeking to put the junkyard dogs as chairman so that we could finally, because this is the one time that they just have to set up a Congress that is going to punish people, because there's a lot of people who need to be punished right now. There's a lot of people at the FBI who need to be fired, potentially jailed There's
Yeah.
people at
Yeah.
all
And-
over the DoD, all facets of the DoD, and they need to set that precedent so that in other countries they go to that same exact mentality. It's
Mhm.
time to clean house. It's time to make everybody pay for acting like they didn't have any rules that they had to follow.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, what a beautiful time to be alive. I have never been more excited for news off of Twitter. And when I say news, I'm not referring to mainstream news at all.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never been more excited for social media in my life. And I'm not a social media guy. I mean, this is about as social as I get outside of work and such. And I'm excited to go onto Twitter each day and see
Yeah.
what's going to be next. And you know, some of the opinions too that you get, some people are voicing their opinions and on both sides, the left or the right. I mean, and let's be clear here. There are some fucking whack jobs on the right too.
Mhm.
I mean, there are some fucking whack jobs. It's like, everything's
yeah.
a fucking psyop or whatever. Like, there's a lot of fucking idiots out there on both sides. So to be clear,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not lunatics on both sides of the aisle here, but you know, man, oh man,
Yeah, but the thing
what a
about
time
the
to be
difference
alive.
is the difference is that on the right we have a very clearly defined limit, and everybody has acknowledged you can't go that far right. If you go that far right, then you are considered a problem to everybody. You cannot say certain things on the right. You can't. There's nothing there on the left. Like
Yeah,
they're
well, I was
still
about to say
ex-
they're
exploring
still
how fucked up they
expanding.
can
Yeah,
get.
yeah, they're still
Yeah.
expanding and perverting all sense of any social construct, any biological it's it's the
Yeah,
list goes on.
all,
So
all wisdom is just disappearing. They think that everything, like I say, everything everything that was a concept before 1965 is at risk of just being attacked and then canceled. Because they just think that everything that went on before 1965 is just evil and malignant. And it's like, well, Mao did a lot of really crappy things in the name of equality after 1980, after 1965 too. So let's think about the 60 million dead Chinese who supported whose lives supported equity and complete equality for all in China. And so it took 60 million murders for them to get to where they are now, and I don't think it was justified.
I mean, that's quite the take on that, Jay. What do you mean 60 million murders wasn't justified? Please
Yeah.
explain.
Well, I mean, we look at what we hear these people talk about the awful things that religion has done, the awful things that nationalism has done. Well, put every bad religious founded organization on one side of the scale, and then put the Soviet Union and China on the other side. And see, that's what happens when nobody thinks God is looking, when the state is put above any sort of a soul, human soul, meaning to life. When you get into meat sack thought, you get 160 million murders in a space of 70 years.
Yeah, but what we're doing here now is not communism.
No.
It's different this time because they've never done it here before.
Yeah.
So they're going to do it better. It's never been done right. So now when they do it, it's going to be done right, because the first, several times it was attempted. It didn't go so well for those involved. So this time it's going to go better because we know what we're doing this time. We've evolved as a society, and so much that we know that communism is going to go well this time. So we're going to check it out and see how it tastes, see how it feels, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, Heather. Elon still has 176 billion. So times aren't tough.
People in the chat. Let's see what we have here in the chat while we're.
I don't know why people couldn't see the truth when it was happening. It pisses me off, says the beautiful Heather Lonnie. Yeah,
okay, thanks, Jay.
It's and for those people, who are going to find themselves for the next 2 or 3 years going, why does everybody have to argue and squabble and fight over everything that the government says? Well, because they told about 100 million lies in a 2-year period, and it takes people time to get over that. And a lot of the people who did that have to be retired or passed away before that can be forgotten. That's it's that simple.
And a lot of the times you don't even find out about the lie until after they've retired
Yeah.
or after they've passed away. And this is one of the biggest problems, is that you live in ignorance, basically, of what your government and what people are doing to you for so long that you forget about it. Because, like we said earlier, our attention span as a society now is about 35 seconds.
Mhm.
But, as can be evidenced with the length of TikTok videos, for example.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Twitter, 140 characters is a very
Yeah, if you-
narrow scope
yeah.
of.
if you got to read more than 4 sentences, then it's too much. So scroll past it, and
I
otherwise
think
you're
that
not gonna
number's
get any
getting
clicks.
smaller, though. I think that number's getting smaller. I mean, who would have thought 10 years ago? Nobody would have thought 10 years ago that people could be having 4, 5, 6 hour, interviews on YouTube that millions and millions of people watch. Like, who 10 years ago? But there is a growing niche group who are very interested in expanding their mind.
Mhm.
And I like that. And that's like you say, it's good to be alive right now. It is, because now we actually have this, where this we have this platform that's revamping itself into a transparent situation, and we're going to see how awesome that is, right? And at the same time, we have channels like this. We have all kinds of people who are doing the work to give you different perspectives, to offer their opinion and increase the debate and the conversation. And we can really, there's some really brilliant minds out there who, it's people used to think they were recluses. No, they just didn't want to talk to reporters, but they will talk to independent journalists who don't represent Chrysler. Full stop.
Well, yeah, full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's different. The Steven Pinkers
I-
of the world, who never did Barbara Walters or anything, and yet he'll get on Lex Friedman for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
that's what I was about to say. As Jay is referring to Lex Friedman, the magical Lex Friedman. If you haven't seen him before, check him out on YouTube. He, like Jay said, can sit there for 6 hours and get 1 million, 2 million views.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if they're viewing, all 2 million viewers are viewing for 6 hours, but if they are, I mean, that is some marathon viewing. I mean, that is insane. I
Mhm.
can't believe that. But if you watch some
Yeah.
of his stuff, especially when he had Mr. Peterson on there, Dr. Peterson, I mean, it's incredible. It's epic in every minute of it. I mean, Jordan Peterson's long-winded
Oh.
in the first place. God love the man. But he's long-winded in the 1st
Mhm.
place. He's very well-spoken, very verbose. But wow.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and it was great because nobody's really pushed that hard back against Lex Friedman, with the exception of Michael Malice, because he's Michael Malice. But nobody's ever really pushed back. But there's nobody who's safe from Jordan Pete. Like, he pushes back against everybody and anybody all the time. So it's like, that's that's just how that's going to go. But that was the really amazing thing for me. Charles Hoskinson pushed back on Lex a little bit too. But yeah, and there's lots of great ones. Sometimes Joe Rogan goes 3-4 hours, and then you're talking like
a lot. Yeah,
you're
no,
talking
a lot.
12 million people watching that.
Yeah. Well, on replay, but even live,
Yeah.
like it's incredible the amount of views that these people are getting live. And I think we are lucky to have the viewers we have. Thank you for joining us. I think we're just about done with this edition.
Yeah, that's pretty much a wrap for me today. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Good enough. So that was the Twitter files. We're on 6, 7, and 8.
Mhm.
So we are going to move on to the next set. When will we be back, Jay?
Thursday, I believe.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday,
8 Pacific.
We'll be back Thursday. Thanks for joining us. This is the Unacceptables. I'm Jay, or rather, I'm Scott, and this is Jay. I did it twice.
Put your submissions for the ticker in the comments
that's
of
right.
this video. Just do a 200 word, get it close to 200. It doesn't have to be exact, but just try to have it as a 200 word limit.
Yeah. So we'll try that again. This is Jay. I'm Scott. This is the Unacceptables. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Cheers, everybody.
We're out.